This is the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. I am Manoj Mainkar, and in the next half hour, I'll bring to you news updates from India and around the world, awareness videos on coronavirus by Government of India, and a lot more. We'll begin with the news updates.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Namaskar. The news snippets. 25,83,948 people have recovered from COVID-19 in India till now. In the past 24 hours, 60,177 people have recovered. 9,01,338 tests for COVID-19 were conducted in the country in the last 24 hours. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a webinar on Atmanirbhar Bharat in defence manufacturing. Prime Minister said our aim should be to boost defence production, develop new technologies and give significant roles to private players in the defence sector. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, addressing the webinar, said defence sector has been identified as one of the core areas to boost Make in India, where immediate transformation is required. The draft defence production and export policy has been placed in public domain for seeking suggestions. Under this policy, 1.75 lakh crore rupees turnover is expected to be achieved by 2025. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the Indian economy could contract. This is attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic. The shortfall in tax collection for 2020-21 is estimated to be around 2.35 lakh crore rupees due to the extraordinary situation. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that terrorism is a cancer that affects everyone just like a pandemic. The minister made the remarks in an address at the Energy and Resources Institute, TERI. China has reportedly built detention complexes in the Uyghur Muslim majority Xinjiang province. The Uyghur population routinely faces religious persecution and human rights violations from the Chinese authorities. President Donald Trump has accepted the nomination of the Republican Party to be its presidential candidate for the 3rd November U.S. presidential elections. Vice President Mike Pence has been nominated too by the Grand Old Party. The Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe resigned over health problems. Mr. Abe announced his plan at an emergency meeting of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. And that is the end of the news snippets. This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you a special film-based program from our archives.
We all know death is one thing certain for all. Most of us fall prey to death from well-known diseases. It's cancer of some part of our body, or heart attack, or kidney failure, or old age illness. But some of our well-known people have succumbed to the oddest illness, leading us to ponder, how could this happen to him? The late Geeta Bali died of smallpox. Actor Shyam died of a riding accident. Bhagwan Dada died of hunger and liver failure. Divya Bharti committed suicide. And Yash Chopra died of a mosquito bite. Well, that is the ultimate cause. He was bitten by a mosquito in his studio, which carried a dengue virus, and the consequent illness could not be controlled. Thus ended an era in Hindi cinema. Publicists in the past had hailed Amitabh Bachchan as a one-man industry. But the fact is that it was the banner of Yash Raj Films, which was a one-banner industry, and Yash Raj was the one-man industry. Amitabh Bachchan is on record saying that when he was under a cloud and no one wanted to give him any work, he had gone to Yash Chopra and requested for a film assignment. And Yash gave him one such assignment which pulled Amitabh from the quicksands of misfortune. It was said that Yash lived and worked like a Mughal. He accumulated success in cash and distributed his fortune in equal measure. He romanced quietly and created no scandals, and he worked equally lustfully, smashing the routine of shifts and conventions. A time came when no one in the Hindi film industry would move a furniture unless he had consulted Yashji. But all that took its time. Yash Raj, when he decided to be his own man, was still a run-of-the-mill job, though he had caught the eye of his mentors, who included his elder brother Baldev Raj Chopra. The Chopra family hailed from Jalandhar, but shifted home when Baldev Raj found work as a film journalist in the film magazine Cine Herald, which he later purchased. Yash moved along. The Chopras were 8 children. The difference of age between the eldest and the youngest was 30 years. Yash was treated more a child in the family by his eldest brother than a younger sibling. Partition in 1947 caused the Chopra family to flee Lahore, first to Delhi and soon enough to Mumbai, where Baldev Raj had relatives to give shelter. Baldev started to resume his journalistic writings while Yash was still attending the local school. After graduating, Yash decided to start training to be someone in the film industry, and for his training, he joined the production team of I.S. Johar. Johar, who also hailed from Jalandhar, was already a successful film director with the Filmistan studio. Yash found a mentor in Johar, who agreed to assign him a floor assistant's job. Yash got a salary which was enough only for his travel expenses from home to the film studios and snacks on the set. But it was a valuable learning on the film sets, and soon Yash found his confidence to become an effective assistant film director. He now shifted base and joined his brother's film unit of BR Films. The Chopra brothers' first film was Afsana, made in 1951, which was a failure, but success came in 1957 in the film Naya Daur, which launched the BR Film banner. Yash became a partner in the business and assumed many working responsibilities in the film company. Finally, in 1959, Baldev Raj assigned him the film director's job for their venture of Dhool Ka Phool. The film, starring Mala Sinha and Rajendra Kumar, was controversial as it argued that no child could be branded as illegitimate and the charge should be squarely put on the parents for their immature and inconsiderate actions. More controversies followed Yash in 1961 when he made film Dharmaputra, which had a backdrop of the after effects of the country's partition. While this was not the first film connected with the partition, the first one being the film Lahore, made in 1949, film Dharmaputra went on to argue on issues that created the partition, the role of leaders, and the tragedy of the shifting. Many communities wanted the film to be banned. Violent demonstrations against the film were held. There were counter-agitations, less violent, in favor of allowing the film to be screened. Finally, saner elements won the day. The film found in Shashi Kapoor a new young hero with mass acceptance. He had already shown good promise in the film Awara as a child actor. Thus began a remarkable career in film production, in which Yash undertook film direction, script writing, and working as a film producer. By the time Yash decided to call it a day, his film company had already made 54 films, averaging at least 2 films a year. But that came later. The two brothers, working in tandem under the banner of BR Films, now went on to make some great classic films of the sound era. These films included Sadhana, Qanoon, Gumrah, Waqt, Ittifaq and Aadmi Aur Insaan. Film Waqt, made in 1965, marked a cornerstone on Hindi cinema as the first of the coming successful films which effectively incorporated a multi-star story. The film itself also involved an opulent show of wealth and poverty in colour. The partnership between elder brother Baldev Raj and the youngest sibling began to show strains in personal relations by 1969. Baldev Raj did not approve of Yash getting mixed up in casual friendships with women in the film industry. Yash, on the other hand, felt he had a right to choose his gender company, and finally, when tensions within the family took a turn for the worse, Yash decided to formalize his friendship with Pamela Singh, who was his constant companion. He married her, much to the opposition of the Chopra family, and moved out of his brother's film company to create his own business concern under the banner of Yash Raj Films. The successful launch of the film Daag in 1973 ensured a sound financial base for Yash Raj. The year 1975 was momentous for Yash Raj when film Diwar proved to be a huge box office success. This was followed by Kabhi Kabhi. Film Silsila proved to be a commercial failure, but the fortunes were redeemed when the film Chandni and Lamhe were declared both critical and commercial successes. Yash Raj had a keen sense of music, and most of his films were musical hits. He selected the songs personally, agonizing on each word of the song with the songwriter and the tempo of the song. He ensured most of his films should have a strong element of drama and romance. Indeed, his films were marked with the romantic elements, which were the hallmark of Yash Raj Films. In 1995, Yash Raj Films produced a musical called Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge to introduce a young Aditya Chopra into filmmaking. The film turned out to be a cult classic and even today is running in its 1600th week in Mumbai, breaking all world records. A time came when the mere announcement of a film under the Yash Raj banner ensured a box office success for it. Yash Raj knew he was a successful businessman. He opened his film distribution offices in England, USA, Germany and Dubai, and the first Indian to do so at such a large scale, and earned valuable foreign exchange for his country. Yash Chopra remained the first Indian film director who was made a member of the British Academy of Films and Television. He was honoured so liberally that one would be surprised why he alone should be singled out. Yash Raj received 5 times honorary degrees of doctorates from universities and institutes of higher learning. He held the record of receiving the highest number of National Film Awards for his films in the category of wholesome entertainment, and that number being 6 times. These awards itself became the collective stamp for families visiting cinema shows to ensure the films made by Yash Chopra were good enough for the family entertainment, though the banner did make adult fare. Yash left a trophy trail which was the envy of the film industry. His films were adjudged 12 times for the Filmfare Awards. He made his mark in international film festivals on 5 occasions. The Indian government decorated him with the Padma Bhushan Award in 2005 after bestowing him in 2001 with the country's highest award for cinematic excellence, namely the Dada Saheb Phalke Award. As Yash neared the magical age of a super senior citizen of the Indian film industry, he decided to slow down his activities and, in fact, announced one fine evening that his film Jab Tak Hai Jaan would be his last directional effort and he would henceforth undertake lighter assignments. This film was already ready in 2012, but he felt he should add a song featuring Shah Rukh Khan and Katrina Kaif. He had selected his favorite locale in Switzerland. It was then that he was bitten by a mosquito in his studio, which carried a dengue virus. Yash developed fever. He was rushed to the hospital as his platelet count fell dramatically. He went into coma, never to recover. It was all so sudden. The film industry could not comprehend how Yash could die so suddenly. A man who looked every way a youthful Pathan, so full of energy and ideas. Yash, the man they all loved, was now to be bid a goodbye. The streets of Mumbai got cleared of traffic to allow the last ride to the cremation ground. Television cameras followed the procession as the nation's audience, so familiar with his films and face, dragged their tears along this mournful journey. Finally, as the sun began its descent, Yash was given a last big farewell and the flames were lit. Yash moved into cinematic history of modern India. That song, reserved for shooting in Switzerland, was never put in the film as planned. The film was, however, released, but Yash was not in it. His romance with his love was over. During 2013, the Department of Posts issued a postage stamp in tribute to the great filmmaker from the land of the five rivers.
You were listening to a special film-based program from our archives. This program came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
You are tuned to the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you today's commentary, Renewed Momentum in India-Vietnam Relations. It is scripted by Dr. Roop Narayan Das, Strategic Analyst, and read by Kaushik Rai. India-Vietnam relations, which was elevated to comprehensive strategic partnership during the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Vietnam in 2017, continues to be an important factor not only in the bilateral relationship between the two countries, but also for regional peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. This has acquired added traction in the backdrop of China's belligerence in the South China Sea and elsewhere as well. It augurs well that there have been regular interaction between the leaders of the two countries at various levels, both through bilateral institutional mechanisms and also on the margins of multilateral meetings. It is against this backdrop that the 17th India-Vietnam Joint Commission meeting on trade, economic, scientific and technological cooperation was held via video conference. The JCM assumes strategic significance. The meeting was co-chaired by Dr. S. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, and Mr. Pham Binh Minh, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. During the meeting, both sides reviewed the recent developments in India-Vietnam strategic partnership and discussed the entire gamut of their wide-ranging engagement. The agreement to add new momentum to the economic and defense dimensions of the relationship was conferred upon between the two countries, and to explore closer cooperation in emerging areas such as civil nuclear energy, space, marine science, and new technologies. The two sides also shared their views on regional and international issues of mutual interest, especially in the context of the outbreak and spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Both India and Vietnam have earned international applause for effectively managing and mitigating the dreaded coronavirus. At a time when Indian economy is being recalibrated under Prime Minister Modi's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat for enhancing resilience through self-reliance and human-centric globalization for India's economic revival. Dr. Jaishankar invited Vietnam to take advantage of India's new economic capacities and demands. As the two countries enjoy convergence of outlook and approach on a number of regional and global issues, both sides agreed to coordinate closely at multilateral forums, including at the UN Security Council, where both India and Vietnam will serve concurrently as non-permanent members in 2021. The two sides also agreed to step up cooperation and coordination at important regional forums under the ASEAN framework. Dr. Jaishankar expressed India's full support to Vietnam's chairmanship of ASEAN this year and appreciated the positive leadership provided by Vietnam to ASEAN when the world is confronted with the COVID-19 pandemic. Earlier, the Vietnamese envoy in New Delhi had briefed India's Foreign Secretary about the acceleration of tensions in the South China Sea in the wake of China's significant ramping up of its military presence by deploying a large number of ships and fighter jets in the resource-rich South China Sea despite the calls for restraint by several countries. The Vietnamese ambassador gave an account of the current situation in the South China Sea, including around Vietnamese waters, where India's ONGC Videsh has oil exploration projects. India has been supporting freedom of navigation and access to resources in the South China Sea in accordance with the principles of international law, including the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of Sea. India's defense, particularly naval cooperation with Vietnam and the credit line to Vietnam extended during the visit of Prime Minister Modi for acquiring high-speed patrol boats from India, reflects India's concerns and commitment to Vietnam's territorial security and sovereignty. People of India hold Vietnam and Vietnamese people in very high esteem for their tenacity and heroic struggle. Vietnamese leaders like Ho Chi Minh and General Vo Nguyen Giap are household names in India. They tested and trusted historical, cultural and political bonding between the two countries, and their leaders has not only sustained the relationship between the two countries and their peoples, but also elevated it to a high strategic level. That was today's commentary, Renewed Momentum in India-Vietnam Relations. It was scripted by Dr. Rupa Narayan Das, strategic analyst, and read by Kaushik Rai. This broadcast came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
This broadcast came to you from the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.